US President Donald Trump has said efforts to end Russia's war in Ukraine were in the final stages and the negotiating teams have the makings of the deal. Mr. Trump is hosting his Ukrainian counterpart in Florida for talks on the latest peace proposal, with the meeting now lasting for close to 2 hours. Earlier, Mr. Trump said he held a productive phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
A pivotal meeting following months of diplomacy to end Russia's war in Ukraine. The revised 20-point peace plan is at the heart of today's talks at Mar-a-Lago between Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump. The mood optimistic from both leaders.
I think we're in final stages of talking, and we're going to see. Otherwise, it's going to go on for a long time.
Ahead of the high-stakes meeting, the US leaders spoke by phone with Vladimir Putin, and they'll talk again afterwards. Mr. Trump said he's confident that Russia's president is serious about peace. EU leaders will be joining the crucial Florida negotiations remotely. At the top of the agenda, the biggest sticking point, the fate of the Donbas, and whether Kyiv will yield to Kremlin's demands to withdraw its troops. In today's comments, the Kremlin claimed that Moscow and Washington jointly oppose any temporary ceasefire. A permanent end of hostilities, according to Moscow, is only possible if Kyiv surrenders the entire Donbas. Mr. Zelensky said he's willing to pull back forces from the region if Russia does the same and the area becomes a demilitarized zone monitored by international troops. Robust security guarantees by the US and NATO remain a key condition for Ukraine. The Kremlin insists it won't accept European peacekeepers, seeing them as a legitimate target for Moscow's armed forces. The talks come a day after Russia pummeled Ukraine with a barrage of drone and missile strikes, killing 2 people, while Kyiv hit Russian oil infrastructure. On the battlefield, Kremlin's troops grind forward, claiming control of a key city in the Zaporizhia region, a claim Kyiv disputes. Vladimir Putin warned that if no peace deal is reached, he's ready to achieve his war goals by force. Tanya Royd, RT News.
Well, just before coming on air, I spoke to Siobhan O'Grady, the Ukraine bureau chief with the Washington Post, and I asked her what concessions could be on the table.
Ukraine has already agreed to major concessions. I mean, they've even agreed to cap their peacetime army at 800,000 troops. Of course, an earlier version of the draft deal that was very leaning toward Russian positions was requesting that Ukraine's army be limited to only 600,000 troops. We've also seen President Zelensky just in the past few days say that he would be willing to withdraw troops from the eastern Donbas region if Russia did the same. And so I think that's a major concern, is whether Russia would be really willing to do that, how that entire area would then be controlled. Russia has previously rejected talks over different kinds of peacekeeping groups that could come in, the Coalition of the Willing, which is the European countries that are willing to send troops to monitor any ceasefire after a ceasefire is in effect. So there are still many details to be hammered out. And again, this is President Zelensky meeting with President Trump. Yes, there was a phone call with Putin earlier this afternoon before this meeting, and there's expected to be another after. But the war is not between the United States and Ukraine. And so any discussions of what those two countries agree on today does not mean that Russia will agree on them as well.
And as you say, there are differing opinions. We heard President Zelensky say today that he wants to bring peace as quick as possible, yet Russia has said a ceasefire, which is what's proposed, would only prolong the war. But what is the situation as it stands today on the front lines? Because the fighting continues as these talks take place, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The fighting continues on the front lines. Different parts of Ukraine continue to be bombarded daily by Russian missiles and drones. I'm currently sitting with a backup battery and small lamp because my own power is out due to Russian attacks on the energy grid. It's been freezing temperatures outside here. We've had a snowstorm over the past day, and a lot of people have been without heat. We had 1 million people without power in Kyiv alone. So on the front line in the east, there continue to be some very small Russian advances in some parts, just as there have been throughout the war. This is really a war that is being fought by the meter and not by the mile. So I think that any suggestion that Russia is making major advances and will just seize this territory militarily one way or another is simply not proven by what's happening on the ground. It would take possibly years at this rate for them to control all of the eastern Donetsk region, but they do make some small advances because they're willing to just throw so many troops at the fight, as they always have been. They're so much more willing to sacrifice the lives of their troops than Ukraine is, and it's for that reason that they continue to make these small advances.
Siobhan O'Grady, Ukraine Bureau Chief with The Washington Post. Thank you for speaking to RT News this evening.